The artist I chose to research was Kiki Smith. She was born in Germany in 1954 but grew up in New Jersey. Um, a quote that I pulled that I thought really described her was: "The recurrent subject matter in Smith's work has been the body as a receptacle for knowledge, belief, and storytelling." So a lot of her art focuses on the human body, organs, cellular forms. Later on, her work went on to include hybrids, and her later pieces in life signified death, resurrection. She utilizes sculpture, drawing, and printmaking to convey her thoughts through her work. So in the 80s and 90s, her work shifted, and it was primarily focused on the female body, which was considered then to be feminist art and also activism. Her influence in doing so was heavily influenced by the AIDS epidemic, which was just outbreaking, and social constraints on the body. She states that her work is not didactic, rather, she is trying to synthesize her experience, and that was pulled from an interview between Kiki Smith and a woman named Heidi Jolvatis. So here we just have some examples of Smith's sculptures, and you can see really her emphasis on the female body through a lot of these. So this piece is called The Tale. It was created in 1992. It's a sculpture that I'm choosing to analyze. So for description, just on a really basic level, you see a woman on all fours, something long coming out of the sculpture. She appears to be pushing or in pain. The sculpture is also life-size, which I think helps to kind of identify and really speak volumes to the message. There's an empty background. There's nothing else really in the space except for the woman. It's very bold, and I think it really makes a statement in itself. She's naked, covered in filth, with possible blood or feces coming out of her. So for analysis, I think the focal point of the piece is kind of really on whatever is coming out of her body, and I think that symbolizes a bigger meaning, which I'll talk about in my interpretations. The color, I noticed a lot of neutral colors, but there's again that emphasis on the reddish brown color to kind of emphasize what's coming out of her. Texture, I think there's a lot of texture in the piece, which is kind of visible from the photographs. It's a life-size sculpture, so you really see kind of imprints very vaguely of the skin and different details in that. And in terms of shape, the body again is on all fours, and it looks like the woman is kind of crawling away from herself, just trying to almost escape something. And it's very life size and proportionate, which I think again is very important in this piece because it's trying to convey something really meaningful. So for interpretation, I had a lot of fun looking at this piece. My initial thoughts were kind of in regards to maybe like a miscarriage or a stillbirth, and then I thought maybe it was something, you know, traumatic in terms of like injury or pain, and it was like kind of recreating those experiences. But as I read more into it and kind of saw what Kiki had to say about it, it kind of resembles humiliation and dragging that along with you, visible for all to see, almost like as if it's your internal personal garbage. And I think the sculpture really captures the rawness of the body, and it's just a reminder that our mortal bodies must not be hidden, even when we're carrying baggage and stuff that we don't want other people to see. Sometimes it's almost inevitable for them to see that. So in terms of judgment, I think that this piece could be classified as representational art because it's using some things many critics have called disgusting to represent something beyond visibility. So that idea again of dragging your internal baggage around to the point where it's unable to be hidden from others. But I think that's also very interpretable, and it could mean different things to different people. And for that reason, I believe that it fits into the category of representational art because of the way it could be interpreted. And so, how I chose to interpret Kiki and kind of use her as an influence in my book, I really loved the idea of female body and feminist art, also hybrids. So I kind of got the idea to create something post-human that also still encompassed parts of the idea of human. So that's kind of how I started doing like hybrids of female figures with other animals, natural forms, and then some digitalized and futuristic elements, which were my generative drawings. So I decided to name my book The Return of the Matriarch, and the idea behind it is kind of a new world in which women are the leaders, except they're almost taking on other roles that, we're not used to in this society.